Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Nonprofit Net Zoominar on to grow your nonprofit, unlock 120,000 in free Google Ads. I'm Dora Wong, one of the board members for Nonprofit Net. We'll get to our presentation in just a moment. At the conclusion of our presentation, you'll get a survey that Zoom will send out, and we really appreciate your comments because it helps us understand what your needs are and how you view what we do. Specifically, what kind of programs you'd like to see for the future. Today, I'd like to introduce to you our presenter, who's Gail Snow Moraski. She's an expert on Google's nonprofit ad program. Welcome, Gail.
Thank you very much, Dora. I'm glad to see so many people on here today, and I really appreciate everybody making the time because I know how busy this time of year can be for everyone. So thank you for squeezing us into your schedule. And I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. And I did want to say that I made the slides may seem a little content dense, but I did want to make the slides comprehensive so that you could use them as a handout after our presentation is over, so that you could use it as a guide or a resource. Thank you again, Dora, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And just to give you a little bit about my background, I run a digital marketing agency called Results Communications and Research. Prior to going into consulting, I worked in the corporate marketing world for many, many years. And I bring about 15 years of experience running Google Ads and about 11 years of experience consulting with both for-profits and nonprofits on Google Ads, and helping a number of organizations either obtain a Google nonprofit ad grant or to capitalize on one. So often organizations will go through the process of obtaining a grant, but then they really don't know how to optimize it or maximize it. And I'll come in and provide advice that way. One of the things my digital marketing agency specializes in is search engine optimization. And you may have heard the term SEO. And a piece of search engine optimization is what they call paid search marketing, or you'll also hear of SEM, which is search engine marketing. It's all the same thing, and it's basically using ads and to appear at the top of search engine results for relevant terms and relevant geographies, instead of just focusing on getting your website to rank well organically. It's just a way kind of to move to the top of search results when you're in a situation where you can't wait to get your website ranking well, or you may be in a very, very competitive environment and it's the only way that you can get your website to rank well. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Just a little bit of a housekeeping thing. We are going to go through the entire presentation first before we answer any questions, but feel free to put questions in the chat as we go along, and then Dora will be triaging them and will be feeding me the questions after we get through the presentation. So if you think of anything, feel free to put it in the chat right away. But just know that we won't be addressing them until we get to the end of the presentation. So I think that's kind of the intro. So I guess we will get started. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to talk about what a Google nonprofit ad grant is, who's likely to qualify, and again, what is Google search advertising? How can I spend my ad grant dollars if I obtain a grant? How do I apply? And what are some of the inputs that are required to actually set up a Google Ads search advertising campaign in Google? And what are just some of the Google Ads basics and requirements I need to understand? So one caveat I want to make is that Google regularly makes changes to the application process and the guidelines for Google Ads. So something I shared today about the Google Nonprofit Ad Grant, either the application process or requirements to participate, could possibly change by the time you go to apply. But in general, things have been kind of staying pretty static on the application process and some of the requirements. And in fact, Google has sort of lightened up on some of the requirements, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's get into the nitty gritty. So who qualifies for a Google Nonprofit Ad Grant? Pretty much all U.S. 501c3 organizations are eligible for a grant. The organizations that don't tend to qualify are, really large nonprofits like a college or university or a health system or a hospital, because, they are nonprofits, but they're not the organizations that Google is really looking to serve with their grant. Now, if you work for an organization like a large health system, hospital, a university where there's a philanthropic arm, like a foundation, that might qualify for a grant. But in general, it's more like the small to mid-sized nonprofits that end up qualifying for a grant. And as part of the qualification process, you must acknowledge that your organization does not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity in hiring or employment practices. So some other qualifications: you must have a website, because that's just the way that Google Ads work. People click on your ads and they land on your website. So you must have a high quality website. It has to be secure, which means it has a security certificate attached to it, and that it has an HTTPS address versus an HTTP address. I find nowadays most websites have that. It's very unusual for a website not to have that security certificate in place, but you do need that. It has to be a high quality site. It has to tell visitors what your mission is, what you're all about, and have like a good user experience and strong navigation. It can't be a website whose primary purpose is e-commerce, and I know that many nonprofits actually sell services and products to fund their mission. That's okay if you want to use the advertising to try to sell some of your products and services, but the primary purpose of your business cannot be e-commerce. You also need to disclose on your website what any funds that you raise from selling your products and services will be used for. And you also want a site that loads quickly and doesn't have any broken links. And I just want to state, as an SEO expert, search engine optimization expert, that all of these things that are listed here aren't just relevant to Google search advertising. They're relevant to having your website rank well in Google in general. Google doesn't like to serve up sites that aren't secure. It certainly does. It focuses on serving up sites that have a good user experience. And also, it does not like to serve up sites that have a really slow site load speed or that have broken links. So those are just general SEO best practices. So again, getting back to who qualifies, based on my experience, anybody meeting the requirements we went over earlier about the types of nonprofits that qualify will end up receiving a grant, as long as they follow the ad grant application process and the Google Ads ad grant requirements and Google Ads requirements. And while I noted on this slide that more than 15,000 grants have been awarded worldwide since 2003, my guess is that number is 10 times the number that I have listed there, because Google has not updated this figure about the number of grants that has awarded in years. And so the number of nonprofits that have a grant is significantly higher than what's listed here. And keep in mind that if you're competing with other nonprofits, they may have a grant. So all the more reason for you to look into one so that you can also appear at the top of search results for relevant searches. So I mentioned earlier that what we're going to be talking about is paid search advertising. And that's part of what I call pool marketing. So pool marketing is when you advertise your products and services, your organization, to people that are actively searching to find someone like you. Now, if your nonprofit is one that offers services or products that no one is aware of, like they don't even know such products or services or solutions to problems exist, and therefore they're not searching to find someone like you, then getting a Google nonprofit ad grant or focusing on SEO in general might not be the best use of your time. But I'm guessing in most of your cases, you're offering services to your constituents that they're aware of and that they would be searching on. But it's just something to think about, because if you don't think people are going to be aware of what you offer and not conducting appropriate searches in Google, because this is all about Google advertising and Google search, then putting time and energy into a Google nonprofit ad grant wouldn't really make sense for you. So what is the grant? So what you get is $10,000 monthly or $120,000 annually in free Google search online advertising. And that is an extremely generous amount of money. Even paid advertisers that pay for their Google advertising often find it difficult to go through that much of a advertising budget on a monthly basis, an annual basis. It's very, very unlikely that you would ever even use the whole $10,000 a month or the whole $120,000 annually. I have yet to work with any nonprofits that have, but I've worked with some that have been able to use a good percentage of it. And I just want to spell out that what Google is providing you is really the media buy. So when I say media buy, what you're getting from Google is the advertising. So you cannot use your grant to pay, you can't use your grant to pay somebody to run your Google ads for you, for example, like hire an outside consultant or even to pay some internal people. The money can only be used for the ad buy itself. I hope that makes sense, and we can talk about that at the end. And basically, the grant is indefinite. Like once you get the grant, as long as you adhere to the policies and procedures that you're asked to with the Google ads, you won't have to apply for it again. I mean, I know organizations who have had the grant in place, for 10 or 15 years or more. So the main thing is if they ask you to provide any verifications, such as what I've listed here, sometimes you have to verify your organization and provide some documentation about your organization or even who you are as an individual using the ad grant, then you need to do so. That's usually the only time I've seen people lose their grant, if they don't provide the verification information. The other way would be if you were blatantly disregarding, some of the policies and procedures that come along with Google ads, but, that rarely ever happens. So, so you just want to make sure that you're following all the guidelines from Google ads so that you maintain it. And then the percent of the budget that you end up using is usually dependent upon the number of service and products you offer and the number of pages on your website you want to drive traffic to, and also the size of your geography, because the smaller your geography, the less opportunities you're going to have your ads served up, because there's just fewer people searching, and your ads will only be served up to people either residing in your geography or expressing an interest somehow in your geography. So usually somebody, if they use their grant across the whole US, you know, those are the organizations that tend to be able to use a good chunk of their Google ad grant dollars. So this slide shows what a Google search text ad looks like, and you'll see that down on the left-hand side there. I had typed calendar Boston Arts event into Google. I knew Arts Boston had a Google ad, and you can see it's a Google ad because it says sponsored. So that's an example of the type of advertising you would be able to employ with your Google nonprofit ad grant. And it used to be in the good old days when Google search advertising first became available, that it would always guarantee that your ad would appear at the top or the bottom of Google search results. That's no longer the case for a couple of reasons. One, now sometimes the ads will appear in the middle of search results pages, and that's just because of the way that continuous scroll is available to both mobile and laptop and desktop users. The other thing that's happened very recently, so recently that I wasn't even able to provide an example, is that with the introduction of AI search engines and Google AI search, Google now sets up what they call AI overviews. And so Google is now going to start serving up ads sometimes, even in these AI overviews that they serve up. But it's such a new turn of events that I was not able to even get an image of a Google ad showing up in AI search results. But I just wanted you to be aware that with the Google ads, you're no longer guaranteed to appear in a particular spot on Google search results pages. Okay, so now we're really going to get into the interesting part about how you can use your Google nonprofit ad grant. So there's a large number of ways that you can employ your grant. I mean, the most basic and common one is obviously using the grant to kind of just create awareness of your brand and your organization. And as I mentioned earlier, any kind of Google search ads can help improve your search engine optimization, because even though you won't always appear at the top of search results with your ad, often you will. And so that's one way that just even running some general branding type ads can help you create awareness of your organization. Running those types of ads can support donation generation by, you know, letting individuals and organizations that might be interested in you know about your cause. I just always advise against using your grant to specifically run a donation type of campaign, because, you know, people aren't necessarily searching on terms indicating they want to donate to a cause, and they may also be turned off by an ad with messaging around donating. You know, my philosophy is drive people to your website for a variety of reasons, let them learn about you, and hopefully when they learn about you and see all the great work that you were up to, they'll want to donate to you. So again, you can indirectly support general or specific fundraising activities with your ads, but I would not run a campaign that is directly focusing on generating donations. You can use your grant to drive sales of products, so tangible goods. If you happen to sell something in like an online store or shop, and what you're selling is going to fund your good work in your community. You can drive sales of services that fund your good work. So maybe there's a service that you offer, people pay for it, but that money then goes to support the work of your nonprofit. And obviously, you can use it to recruit volunteers to your organization. You can use it to support attendance at various events that you hold, whether they be paid or free events like webinars that you're offering or workshops. You can use the grant to cause people to visit your site to download any type of information, any kind of white paper or PDF. You can use it just, let's say you have some kind of fundraising that visitors can participate. Like maybe you have some kind of charity walk or something. You could drive people to your website to learn about that, or to cause them to become an advocate for your organization. And then, of course, in keeping with your mission, obviously you want to make sure that people that need your services are learning about your services and can come on and either learn how to take advantage of your services online or at some physical location. And then other types of what I call conversions that you can cause on your website. So a conversion is any kind of desired action that a visitor will take on your website. And so you can use your grant to cause, a number of conversions. I've listed a lot of the common ones here that people tend to do. Sometimes people just want to do use their ads to try to grow their email list or their e-newsletter list, or they want people to come on and complete their website and complete some kind of inquiry form, or visit various pages of their site, listen to a podcast, watch a video. We already talked about, people maybe visiting your physical address for some reason. You may want them to take a survey, call your organization, or email you. So there's a lot of visitor actions that you can use your ad grant to cause on your website. And of course, I'm sure there's other objectives I haven't even thought of, because each nonprofit has their own unique situation. But these are some of the common ways I've seen people use their Google nonprofit ad grant. Okay, so now we're going to talk through an ad grant success story. And this is for a Boston area organization. It's Lexington Arts and Crafts Society, which is known as Lexart. They're here, I guess, I don't know if that's officially it's not officially the Metro West area. I guess it's a little bit outside of that. But basically, Lexington Arts and Crafts offers memberships to various art studios. They offer classes, they hold different events. They have an online gift shop, a physical gift shop, rotating exhibits. And so in 2021, so I started working with them during the pandemic, right the summer of 2020. So that was a time where they really were able to capitalize on their grant, because they offered most of what they offer to the whole U.S. and online versus in person, because at that time they had to. So, they were offering online classes, and they had their virtual gift shop, and they had some other virtual discussions and events going on. And they were able to use like 54% of their Google ad grant dollars around that time frame, because they were serving the whole U.S., not just their local community at that time. And that's why I had said earlier, the broader your geography, the more you're probably going to be able to use your ad grant dollars. But for them, it was a godsend to have the grant in place and to be able to drive people throughout the U.S. to their various products and services. And they even told me that, during the time frame when we were running the ads, that they grew their email sign up and distribution list significantly over that time frame, because people were visiting the site because of the ads. And then they would, while they were there, they would sign up, to become part of their email list. So just during that short period in 2021, they were able to drive 25,000 people to their website, and they had their ads served up almost 500,000 times. An impression means one serving up of the ads. So their ads generated 450,000 impressions during that year. So they're a great example of an organization that used their grant to the fullest. So now we're going to talk about the actual application process itself. And I did want to give the caveat that this is going to get kind of technical. So again, I had said earlier, I made this slide really detailed because I wanted people to be able to take the information with them. You know, when you're hands-on in doing this, it'll make a lot more sense than me just talking through it, but I did want you to have the information and understand the general process. And we can talk about this again at the end if anybody has any questions. I couldn't actually go through the process and document it because I would have needed an actual nonprofit who was applying for the grant at the time to be able to do so. But I think it'll make sense when we start talking through it. A couple just kind of administrative notes. When you begin this process, you want to make sure that you use the same email address for both your Google Nonprofit and your Google Ad Grants accounts. That's just really important because, you know, you're going to need to be checking every once in a while for alerts from the Google Nonprofit program and the Google Nonprofit Ad Grant program and Google Ads and everything. So it just makes sense to have that all coming into the same email box. You can always add members of your team to your ad grant and to your Google Ads account later. So that's not an issue. If you need several people on your team to have access to your Google Ads account, which is what you'll use to kind of set up your ad campaigns, you can do that later. One thing I want to reinforce, and that's why I have it in bold capital letters, is you never want to provide a credit card to Google Ads ever. You shouldn't need to because you're getting an ad grant, so you shouldn't be paying for your advertising. I've seen people by mistake give their credit card information to Google. You shouldn't, and they shouldn't be asking you for one. What you will need to accept what they call a billing profile. You will get an email, and you will need to accept that, but never provide a credit card that they can debit or charge, because if you got a grant, you shouldn't be paying for your advertising. And the other thing is, just when you're setting up your first ad campaign in Google for their review, just make sure you leave any campaigns and ad groups paused until Google has had a chance to review them. So now we're going to get into what the 4 broad steps are for applying for a grant, and then we're going to go over each of the 4 steps in more detail. But basically, you know, these are the 4 steps that you have to apply for, or make sure you have a login and password for your TechSoup account. You have to apply for or make sure you have a login and password for your Google Nonprofit account. And then you have to activate your Google Ads account by completing a short survey just to show Google Nonprofit that you have some knowledge of Google Ads, and just to provide some basic information about your organization. And then your last step is actually setting up your first Google Ads campaign within the Google Ads account that you will get as a result of applying for a grant. So those are the 4 broad steps. And again, I wish I could show you more in the tool, but it's kind of impossible to do that. I'm guessing most of you know about TechSoup, and so, but for those who don't, TechSoup is Google's technology product for nonprofits. So most of the nonprofits I work with already have a TechSoup account in place. But if you don't have one, I noted on here where you can go. Here's the URL to go to set up your TechSoup account, because you're going to need that to get a token. And that token that you will receive from them, you're going to need to use it in your Google Nonprofit account. So that's your very first step, is to set up or get access to your TechSoup account. And then you're going to have to set up or have access to a Google Nonprofit account. And again, I put the URL here, set up a Google Nonprofit account if you don't have one. And again, you'll need to use that token that you get from TechSoup. And then you're going to have to check your email that you use to set up your Google Nonprofit account to let you to check to see if your Google Nonprofit account has been set up. And most of the requests are processed within a week or 2. Then once you have your Google Nonprofit account set up, you're going to sign into your Google Nonprofit account. You're going to scroll through the products and click Get Started under where it says the Google Ad Grant product. You're going to have to fill out a short survey, like I mentioned earlier. Just you want to see that you know the basics of Google Ads, like, you know, generally how they work. And then you're also going to have to just provide some information about your nonprofit organization. Then you have to return to the main dashboard in the Google nonprofit account and go to the Google Ad Grant page. And you're going to have to indicate that you completed the eligibility form and click to activate your activation for Google Ads for review. Now, again, that's why I've documented all this, because it's a lot to remember. And until you're really doing it hands-on, you know, I get that it's a lot of detail and it may not all make sense. But once you're going through the process and you have these slides as a resource or guide, I think it will all go very smoothly. And then your activation request, for the Google Ads, that usually takes about 3 business days. It may take a little bit longer, but it's not a long wait. So as far as setting up your Google Ads campaign, and we're going to go into that in more detail, I mentioned earlier, you don't want to set up your own Google Ads account or give a credit card the way you would if you were a for-profit organization. Wait till you hear back from Google. You'll get the email from them about accepting a billing payment profile, and you'll also get information about how to access your Google Ads account. And I did put the URL in there that you'd be going to access your Google Ads account, but wait till you hear back from them. And then you can use the Google Ads Manager tool to set up your first campaign. And we're going to discuss, you know, what some of the requirements are for a Google search campaign and what some of the inputs are. But once you set up your campaign, then Google, you can have Google review it, and you know, usually your campaign's up and running pretty quickly. So now we're just going to really quickly talk through some of the basics of a Google search campaign. And obviously, I don't know how much experience any of you do or don't have with paid search. Maybe you've run some paid Google ads, or maybe you've even run Microsoft Bing ads. So that's another form of paid search advertising that organizations use. I don't know if Bing has a nonprofit program like Google Ads, but you know, 92% of searches still are conducted by searchers in Google, and Google may start losing some of its dominance with everything going on in the AI search front, plus, you know, some of the lawsuits that have been going on with Google. So they might not always be the largest search engine, but for now, they definitely still are the biggest player on the search front. So most organizations, if they are purchasing search advertising, they're purchasing it through Google, and sometimes they'll supplement it with Bing advertising. So, like I said, you buy the paid search advertising directly from whoever the search engine is. In your case, you're not really paying for it, and you're not paying a cost per click, although that's how it usually works. In your case, it will be free. And then we discussed earlier kind of where the ads appear on search results pages. So some of the key, I call them inputs, but some of the information you are going to have to provide within your Google Ads account to Google related to any kind of ad campaign you set up are these. You're going to have to tell Google what the geography is, and that's something that's set at the campaign level, where you're going to have to say, oh, I want my ads served up in a specific state or several states, and what are those, or certain cities, or the whole U.S. And you can also set up your geography as a radius. So let's say you serve like people that live within a 50-mile radius of your physical location. You can do radiuses from a location too. So there's a lot of different options for that. And you know, this piece is really critical. This next piece, you really want to give a lot of thought to what's called your keywords. And your keywords are the search terms that Google is going to serve your ads up for. So what terms do you think your audience is searching on to identify? I always say identify someone who offers the product, services, and solutions to problems that you offer. You really got to give a lot of thought to that, because often people aren't necessarily searching for a particular product or service too. They're looking for a solution to a problem. So you want to think about that as well. And what terms make the most sense for your ads to be served up for. You can do, so the main form of targeting with search advertising is the search terms. That's the main form of targeting. You're having your ads served up to people that are searching on those search terms. But you can also drill down a bit further on the targeting by only having your ads served up to people that meet certain age, household income level, or gender requirements as well. So you may know that your nonprofit tends to serve people of a certain age, a certain gender, a certain household income. You can target further by, indicating that in Google Ads that you only want people served up to meet those particular demographics. I almost never bother with that, because my thinking is if somebody's searching on relevant terms, why not have the ad served up to them? They might be searching on behalf of their friend or a family member that qualifies for whatever you're offering, or who might be interested in whatever you offer. So I don't tend to use that feature very often, but it is something you can consider. You basically have $329 a day to spend on your ad buy, your advertising medium. Again, you probably will hardly ever come anywhere close to using that. But if you're running several campaigns, when you set up a campaign, you do have to put the budget, the daily budget in. So if you're running several, you need to figure out how you want to allocate that $329 a day. And, so you need to think about, which of your campaigns do you want up served up most, and you would provide that with a bigger percentage of your budget. Another key component is obviously deciding what the ads are going to say themselves, like what's the content going to be. And quite a few years back, Google started changing the format of ads. They used to be what were known as like static ads, and you would just provide Google with 3 or 4 headlines plus the URL of the landing page you want people to land on when they click on your ad. And you would have to come up with every possible combination of headlines. Like you'd only be able to run three or 4 headlines at a time. So you'd have to come up with every possible combination of them to test which ones work best together. But many years ago, Google switched to responsive ads. And what you do is you provide Google, you can provide them with up to 15 rotating headlines and then 4 description lines. The description lines are more about what your organization is about as a whole. The headlines are really more relevant to the campaign topic and what you're really promoting with your ads. But what's really great about the responsive ads, and you are required to use them now, is that Google will automatically optimize your campaign for you. So it's kind of testing all the various combinations of headlines that can be served up, and it's basically figuring out for you which ad headline combinations work the best, so you don't have to come up with every possible iteration of an ad. And ultimately, Google will start serving up the ads that perform the ad headline combinations in the form of an ad. It'll start serving those up the most because it wants you to get the greatest number of clicks and have the highest click-through rate. So it'll start serving up the ones that are performing best the most. And I mentioned too, landing page. So when you set up when you set up your ads, you're going to have to think, well, if people click on my ad, what page of my website do I want to land them on? Because, Google needs to know that, where to take somebody if they click on your ad. So that's something else you have to think about. And then you have to think about, obviously, what are the actions you want somebody to take when visiting your site. Again, those are called conversions, when somebody completes a desired action on your site, and you should think in advance what you're looking for them to do. And you do have to use conversion tracking as part of the Google Ad Grant requirement. So this slide shows what a campaign might look like. You are required to run at least one campaign, and you do need to employ at least 2 ad groups within that campaign. So ad groups are sort of like sub-campaigns that fall under one umbrella. So this is just an example. If you were running classes for an online courses campaign, that might be the campaign umbrella, but underneath you might have an ad group for your, let's say you offered a class on how to maintain effective relationships, you might have an ad group for that. And then if you offered a class on conflict resolution, that would fall under that same umbrella. And then for each campaign, as I mentioned earlier, you have to provide the keywords. So those are the search terms that you want your ads shown for. And then you obviously have to provide a number of ads. So Google prefers that you don't use keywords that are only one word, like search terms that are only one word, unless that's the name of your organization, because otherwise it becomes too general and broad and you're not really targeting effectively. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then also, Google Ads provides a number of what they call assets. And so assets are things that are available through Google Ads that go beyond your basic ad copy, right? So you'll provide your ad copy, but what you can provide as far as assets go are things like your phone number. I don't recommend that you run ads that have a phone number asset, honestly, because so many bots click on the phone numbers that you get all these people visiting your website that you really don't even want. But you can have a hyperlink phone number in your ad. But what's shown here are called site links. And I definitely recommend using site links with your ads. It allows people to self-triage so that they can click on one of these site links at the bottom of your ad and visit a different page of your site. So any of your site links have to go to another page of your site that the main ad body copy doesn't go to. So if someone clicked on the main ad body content, and let's say that took them to the about page, then you wouldn't necessarily, in fact, you can't have one of your site links and go to the about page. But it just allows for people to self-triage and get to the page of their website that they might be most interested in right away. And there's other assets like that. You can kind of think of them as like an add-on to an ad, something that goes beyond the main ad body copy. And in fact, I had said earlier that search ads are text ads, but now, last couple of years, you can add images to your text ads, and that can also improve the click-through rate on your ads. They're fairly small, and they can't have they shouldn't have any like words in them because they're small. It's hard for people to read. Ideally, just like a little image. For example, I'm running ads for a nonprofit that offers a lot of music classes and live music performances. We could use a little image of a guitar or a piano or a music note or whatever to convey music, but we, don't necessarily have any words in the image. But I do think I've heard that adding the images improves the click-through rate by about 10%. So I think it's worth considering. So here's some other just Google Ads basics once you do have access to your grant and your Google Ads account. You should be going in and making changes to your account at least once every 2 months, so Google sees that you're active and you're maintaining your grant and capitalizing on it. Even if it's just a matter of going in and adding some new keywords or search terms to existing campaigns or ad groups. Maybe you add some new ads, or maybe you set up some brand new campaigns or ad groups, but you want Google to see that you're active in your accounts and you're checking your ad campaigns and you're not just letting it sit there. Google provides recommendations, and you'll see that as a menu item on your dashboard. So it'll make recommendations on how to optimize or improve your campaign. It's ideal to go through those recommendations and either apply or dismiss the recommendations. Some of the things they recommend you might want to accept, other things you might not want to, but you can apply or dismiss them. And whether you apply or dismiss them, it still improves your optimization score that they give you. So you can have a score between 1 and 100%. 100% is fully optimized. The more optimized your campaign is, the further your ad grant dollars go. So it's worth going through this process and just checking the recommendations. You know, even if it's just once a month or once every 6 weeks, to see what the recommendations are and applying or dismissing them. And you know, just make sure that, you know, when you apply for the grant, you're applying for a particular website. So just make sure that your ads land ad clickers on the website for which you applied for and obtained the grant. This next one here, Google used to require that you maintain a 5% ad click-through rate. I don't think they're as rigid about that, but it's still a good goal to have. An average click-through rate on a search campaign is about 2.5%. A 5% ad click-through rate and it's a fairly strong click-through rate. And it's always, you know, obviously you want people clicking on your ads. You want a strong click-through rate. So it's definitely something to aspire to, regardless of whether they require that. Basically, your click-through rate is the number of people that have an ad served up to them. So each eyeball is the number of people who have an ad served up to them that actually click through on the ad. And then complete any you're going to want to complete any surveys or verifications that Google asks you to complete. This is also a best practice here. You just want to make sure that your campaigns and ads are very cohesive and integrated. So just always think about, do the keywords that you're having your ads served up for, the ad content, and the landing page that you're landing ad clickers on, are they all cohesive? Do they marry each other? Is it integrated? Does it make sense that they all go together? Okay, so this is when it's going to get really technical, and this is where you may need to pull your web developer in or an IT person in. You do want and need to employ conversion tracking, because you do want to know what your ad clickers are doing on your website. Are your ads effective? Are they driving actions on your website that you desire? For certain types of conversions, you can Google Analytics will track those conversions for you. And so you really want to make sure you link your Google Analytics and Google Ads accounts. And I just put a little print screen there of how you do that, but you're going to have to go into Google Analytics and under the, actually, you're going to go into Google Ads and into the data manager, and it shows there how you can connect it with your Google Analytics. But you definitely want those two links so that data can go back and forth between the two accounts. Depending on the type of conversions you want to track, you might also need to use what's called Google Tag Manager and or a tool like CallRail, particularly if you want to track phone calls and form completions that come from Google Ads clickers. And there now is a Google tag that Google Ads will provide you with to add to your website. So that also helps support conversion tracking on your website. So as I put up here, once you've completed your first campaign, unpause it so Google will review it and know that it's ready and the ads are up and going. You can give a big hooray. Your ads are running. and you can log into your Google Ads Manager tool to confirm they're running. You'll see that the campaign is generating impressions and clicks, and that will let you know that the campaign is running. And again, you'll want to go in frequently and look at the recommendations from Google or any kind of alert. Sometimes they'll alert you that you need to verify yourself as an advertiser. So you should be going into your account regularly. But basically, that's the whole process. And I guess we're ready to take some questions. So I'm going to end this and let, I guess, Dora feed me some questions.
Okay, just real quickly, Sue, if you're here, if you want to ask your question, if you want to turn on your video.
Yeah, I'm not in a place where I can turn on my video.
No
Sorry.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just asking, I just wanted to make sure I understood that, like, sort of in the application process, you need to already know what your first campaign is going to be.
I don't think you have to know what your first campaign is, but you have to sort of demonstrate a very basic understanding of Google Ads, like what some of the best practices are. And I unfortunately wasn't able to access the questionnaire, and also they may be shifting it and changing it as they go along. So what I might have looked at the last time I applied might not be the same. But I remember there were some questions about just some best practices, some of the stuff that we talked about earlier today. Unfortunately, that's why you might need to either have somebody on your team or hire an outside person that knows Google Ads just to help you with that particular questionnaire, because it's not a lot of questions, but you do have to demonstrate that you kind of understand how Google Ads and search advertising work.
Okay, and just when you're in the application process, given that, can you start the application and pause it and save it, or do you have to get it through it all in one go?
Well, I think that's a good question. I'm trying to remember. You should be able to go. So yes, I think you can go back in, and no matter what, you should be able to go back in because you'll still have the link to that survey. So let's say you go through it once and you receive the questions that you need answers to. Yeah, you should still have the link to go back in and complete it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then we have a couple minutes. Julie Slack, if you're available. Your question was a little bit more involved, so I saved it for the end. If you're able to turn on your video, go ahead. If not, no problem.
Yep. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a Google Ads account that I've kind of adopted. So when I started at the organization, somebody previously had set it up and activated everything. I've gone in and I've tried to get going, but it says the account's been deactivated. And it looked like it was something I could reactivate on my own, but then it told me to contact customer support. And I've really had a hard time reaching customer support and figuring out how to reactivate the account. So I didn't know if you had suggestions or you've come across that in the past, and how do I go about reactivating? Do I need to set up a new account? Is there a special way to reach customer service that I'm not aware of? Any insight would be helpful.
It's not easy getting in touch with them. Unfortunately, because I've been doing Google Ads for so long, I have some Google, ad contacts. It is very hard to get in touch with somebody. Let me see, if you don't mind putting your email in the chat. Let me see if I can find that phone number, a phone number for you. And if not, I'm glad to reach out to somebody on your behalf and see what we can do. But yes, usually you do have to get a Google Ads rep involved. So I did have somebody get their account deactivated. I've had it a couple of times. Sometimes it's because people just aren't adhering to the general guidelines, or sometimes they make a mistake, like they do something they didn't know you couldn't do and they broke some policies. And that might have happened on yours. Yours may be deactivated just because they can tell no one's gone in there in a long time. Maybe that was why. or maybe somebody did do something that they shouldn't do. Like even sometimes, like one client I work with, they did a trademark infringement. They didn't mean to do it, but they were advertising something using a name they shouldn't have been using in their ad content. So it got deactivated, and then we had to reapply. You might have to reapply. We unfortunately had to go through the whole process again because of that. I think each situation is different. So I can't tell you right now what's going to happen, but you may have to go through the process again. I just don't know because I don't know why it was deactivated.
Hi, I'm just going to pause real quickly. It's 3 o'clock. I just want to be mindful of everyone's time. Please stay on for a few minutes. If Gail, if you're able to answer a few more questions, just want to thank everyone for being here today and thank Gail for sharing so much about the Google Ad Grant. It's really an underutilized resource for nonprofits. We appreciate any support you can give us, $10 or $20 to help us to continue to provide our programming free of charge to all organizations in Greater Boston and Massachusetts. And finally, on January 14th, we'll be back with another seminar from Erica Wasdorf, who is going to present on discovering the power of monthly giving. I'll end there and just say, everyone have a great end of year and happy holidays. And Gail, if you are able to stay on, we'll continue.
Yeah, I can stay on because, I'd love to try to help answer people's questions. And Julie, thank you for your email. I will research that right after we get off the call.